until I get clear, I'm just about to routine, right? And then I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here, and.
Sounds like a party over there.
I'm gonna say, what do you?
Once you get drunk again, that's what we're doing.
I don't need an invite for that.
Yeah,
Speaking my language, we're talking about that here.
literally. All those years, I've been missing out.
Oh, that's funny.
Can we get a sound check online? Can everybody hear us?
They can't.
Oh, they can't talk.
Wave your hand,
Type in,
wave your hand.
wave your hand. Hi.
Yeah, well, hit the chat and let us know if you can't hear us for some reason.
Okay, couple of quick questions. I know I've had through text messages today, and I know I asked them here a couple of minutes ago, but I will ask again since we are an open forum. The one question I did have was for the Phillips Avenue crossing, was for an elevation map. I know citizens that are asking about that. They called me earlier about it. And we are working on getting that. Is that correct?
Yes, it's done.
Okay,
I can get it to whoever needs it.
excellent. Thank you, sir.
You can just email it to me, you know, we'll
Okay.
and I'll get it out.
Any questions from any members up here? No? Okay. We'll open it up to the floor. Jane,
Of course, I always have questions.
fire away.
What happens? You're voting on this tonight.
So yes, let me back up. Let me explain what's happening tonight. Okay, so what this is they have the plats for Phillips Avenue Crossing and preliminary plats for Phillips Crossing and Grant Park Capital, okay? These are the preliminary plats for approval. So what this means is they can start doing their job, getting everything worked up. There will be a final plat later on down the road once they get closer. You know, they don't really have a final until they get out there and start digging. So in the event they go out there and strike oil, you know, that will obviously change things, you know. But as barring anything major changes, this is the preliminary plat for the preliminary approval this evening.
Okay, I totally understand all of that. My question is, you're not the zoning is not the one that votes to annex this property into Baltic? Or is that the city council that does that?
Technically both, to answer your question. So the paperwork has been pulled, but it has not been submitted or turned in yet as far as I know, correct?
I'll answer it if I may. So, two different things. There's a petition for annexation, which has been filed with the city for recommendation for approval. And these are the preliminary plats that we have been working with planning and zoning. And so the planning and zoning board does not make the final determination on either of those items. They will recommend their approval to the city council. The city council then takes up the items and they make the formal approve, deny action on the. So these folks this evening, our hope is that they will make a recommendation to approve those items to be forwarded to the city council for their consideration at tomorrow evening meeting. And
For
then
annexation?
annexation and to the approval of the preliminary plats, both items.
Okay. What happens to all of this if for some reason or other Baltic? We don't really want all this going on in our town. What happens with this property? Say you say we don't approve this. What happens with this property?
Well, they own the property.
They own the property, but
Correct.
what happens with it? Does it become part of another town, or we don't get taxes off of it? I'm hearing all this kind of stuff. Why
Correct,
do
we can't get taxes off of it if it's not annexed in.
Right. Why do we want this?
I guess I would flip the question around and say, why wouldn't you?
Why do we?
Growth, more people to come to town.
Oh, great.
I can take a stab at that. So why would we?
Yeah.
Personally, everything in town costs money, right? So this property is not annexed into the city. They got approximately 103 lots, a whole
132.
bunch of lots, right?
Right.
And I looked at my taxes that went to the city, that are going to the city of Baltic, not including the school or the county or all that. It's something like $900, right? Something like that, around there. So having these another 100 lots in the city, that gives the city approximately, if you just do easy math, 900 times 1,000, what's that? Is it 9,000 or 90,000, right? That gives the city another $90,000 to either build bike trails, do sidewalks that are needed.
Improve quality of life.
Yeah.
Quality of life.
Quality of life, maybe deal with people's houses that are flooding, that are behind the baseball field, that the street used to live on, I know.
Yeah, Caitlin?
Yeah, I know on the upper side, those houses flood every time that there's water, because it all flows off the park right into their houses. Maybe the city could do something for them and do a drainage rate or something. It gives the city $90,000 to $100,000 once the houses are built to improve quality of life.
Per year,
Do
so.
you really think that by doing this, that it's gonna reduce your taxes? Are you,
I'm not
You
saying
didn't
it's
say
gonna reduce,
I mean,
it will not reduce my taxes.
I have seen my taxes go up over $10,000 every year because of the high-end houses that have been built in my neighborhood.
And I get it, it won't reduce my taxes. What it will do is increase the city's money to be able to spend it and give improvements that the city needs.
Well, and they're gonna need that, because where are all these people's sewer gonna go besides down here in this little cess pond that is never gonna handle all that sewer? So we have to have a new sewer system? Is Hefty gonna pay for that? Off of his profit from all of his property, his houses? I doubt that.
Well,
We
one-
pay for that.
One hefty one to pay for it because the business that owns it is Grant Park Capital.
Right.
So to circle back a little bit, Jane, so
If
you're getting into stuff that's been in the works for years already, you know, the
I
increase and
was
stuff
told
like that.
that today, you've been saving for a new sewer for years.
Correct, yes, because when we start building something, when we start a road, we start working on the next project. That's just financial, you know, that's fiscally responsible. So
How much
we're
How
always.
much money do you have in this sewer project that you think would increase a sewer that would handle 100 houses?
I can't speak to that right now, I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's probably gonna take a lot more than what
It
you
will.
have in your sewer.
You are absolutely correct, it will,
Yes,
yes.
And,
yes, it
and,
will.
and if I can add just one thing to your point, we now have 100 more homes that are gonna help in providing funds to those other needs that are there.
100 more houses to pay water and
But if we
sewer.
didn't have 100 more houses, we wouldn't need a new sewer.
We still do, that's a moot point, we still need an upgrade, so that,
We still would not need to have another huge sewer project. And what happens when we get all these houses? Thank God I won't be here, because I'll be dead. What happens with the school? The school is already overloaded.
that's a school issue, that's completely separate from this
It may
meeting.
be a school issue, but do you know who pays for that?
Yes, the citizens,
Us who live here.
yes, I live here as
And
well.
I don't mind doing that, but I don't want to do that when I have somebody else making a whole bunch of money off property and enjoying all of that. And I get to help pay for a new school because we got all these wonderful houses here that who knows how much people make. I don't know. It all just doesn't seem real to me. Somebody paid for my kids to go to school, and for me to go to school. I understand that.
If you own a house, you've been paying for someone to go to school since you owned a house, whether it be in this town, whether it be in the county,
And you know what?
that's just the way, there's no way around that, Jane.
I do not begrudge that. I do not begrudge that. But what I don't like is somebody coming in and impacting like we have on this paper, and then me as a homeowner expecting to build a new school because of all the people that houses have been sold to and families have moved in. Thank God, I'm all for families. But you know what? It's great that all of this is happening. It's wonderful. People have billions of dollars to go out and invest to buy property. Either be a cornfield or a pasture. I follow all of this. I followed you forever. And money is never any issue.
Okay.
Money is never an issue. And nobody thinks about how it affects the people that are around there. I don't care what's gonna happen to us.
I think they do, it's
Well,
gonna be great.
You have a
Growth
different
is-
outlook than I do, and all the people that call me on my phone, I don't go outside my house hardly. But my phone never quits ringing. It's just sad that somebody can impact so severely for other people to pay for it. I know I did ask this gentleman sitting here about covenants.
Yes.
And he assures me that they have covenants to cover the property, so at least when they build a house on the back side of my barbed wire fence,
Mhm.
I know there's gonna be, hopefully, a nice house that won't depreciate my value.
Yes, and based on the rules of planning and zoning as well, yes, they have to follow all laws,
Right.
yes.
And
You know, the world is gonna change.
yeah, I get your frustration and that's a lot. It's a lot to take on. It's a lot to come in, but also if you look right now, Baltic needs it too. There's, you know, there's nowhere for sale coming up. This is it. This is what we have to look forward to. And so you just have to think about that too, about our future and everything else.
Now, let me ask you something. Since I have lived in this town, we went through how many city administrators and mayors? And all I ever heard was, all the property on Lovely is for businesses.
It still is.
14 years later, there's no businesses up there.
We don't have the people to sustain the businesses too, and that's where, you know, we're always looking for new people to come, new businesses to come into Baltic,
Where
but
are they?
they look at our population and they say, well, you're not quite there yet.
When they do a travel study, a car study, and they say, you know, there's 2,200 cars going through Baltic on a daily occurrence, some businesses, that's not enough for them to move to town. So if we get more people to move to town, where we increase that traffic count, bigger businesses will look at coming to town. So we have to have, they both spur each other.
The last meeting that I was at, our building inspector.
Yep.
Honest to God, stood up here
Right there.
and told us that we were gonna have a gas station possibly built up on the corner off of 6th and Lovely.
Okay.
I thought the guy that just built that house was gonna have a heart attack. He's thinking I'm gonna have a gas
So-
station across the street from me?
Two things, I was in that meeting, so the question at that meeting was, what could be built on that corner? And the question was, can a gas station be built there? And yes, the answer is yes. It is zoned commercial, so yes, it could happen. Will it? We don't know that. We can't force people to tell us what they want to build in place.
Right.
As long as they're following the laws, it can be done.
Okay, at that same meeting, we were told how many other businesses were gonna be going on that strip.
Yes, there's 3 properties on that strip, and they've all been subdivided to 3 properties. So 3 different people own those.
I understand the city owns one.
Yes, the city does own one.
What's the city gonna do with a lot?
The city is still working on that right now.
I bet you're gonna build yourself a new city council building, right?
We don't know what we're doing with that property right now, but yes, the city does own that corner.
Right.
Yes.
So why don't the people that live here know what you're doing?
We don't know what
We have
they're,
no plans.
we have
for
no
that piece.
plans right now, Jake.
If I understood it correctly, when that piece was purchased, that was before I came on council, it was to spur economic development, to use that as something to draw businesses in, to
Right,
be able to build some commercial presence.
right.
So, and since the city bought that, that's when the other 2 sold after that. So if we would have known that those would have sold that fast, would the city have bought that? Maybe not. But the city was trying to be forward thinking and come up with due diligence to say, hey, this is what we want for the city. We're gonna try to spur this development.
Well, once upon a time, the corner that's up there, there's a big drawing down at City Hall.
Yep.
About the big concert center,
Community
or
center.
whatever, and then a new city council office and all this kind of stuff. Nothing ever happened.
Correct. Sometimes projects that we plan don't pan out.
But it was pulled out again just recently. It went into City Hall, and here's the building that said, yeah, we're thinking about that again.
Yep. It's been put away and pulled out many times since I've been here. Do you have any other questions, Jane?
I think it's all.
What?
I'm sorry.
You know, we moved here in 1937. The streets, if you could call them streets, the trails were gravel or dirt. I went to third grade in the basement of the church. The first three grades were in one classroom, one teacher, in the basement of the church. They carried drinking water in and had it in a container where you could get a cup of water. And we had an outdoor toilet that had two halves, two and one half for boys and one half for girls. And I don't think I'd like to see it stay the way it was at that time. It has to get better.
Yes, and that's what the hopes is, that everyone has put
And I
forward.
think we have 235 or 45 people in bowling at that time.
It's come a long way since you've been here, hasn't it, Doug? Two schools, everything keeps growing.
Well, if I can make a comment quickly too. So as far as this taking money out of this, I can promise you, there's not gonna be any money getting taken out of this. We're gonna be lucky to even break even because of the extra stuff we're doing. So for example, nobody else puts their own bike trail in. We're gonna spend the money on the bike trail. That alone is over $100,000. And we're trying to do whatever we can to put money back into the city. That's the thing that we've talked about since day one with the city, that at least it's two guys from town that have lived here their whole lives. Mike grew up right across the road from this, and I grew up 3 miles away from this. I have 3 kids, 2 now that are still in the Baltic school, but 3 have gone through. I went to the Baltic school, my whole family did. My great aunt was in the first graduating class here. We're local. The money's going back into the town. We've already done a lot of things for the school, for the city, for people in town, and we're gonna do a lot more. But I mean, this is just one of the next steps. And the only reason we even got involved, well, I'm not a developer, but Mike had been talking to me for several years when he was working for the city, like, hey, could you do something? Because Dell's Lumber doesn't want to do anything. Nobody wants to do anything. And we need some more houses. We're running out of lots. And could we do something that would help the town? And so that's the reason why we're doing something. And also, we would like our people that work out at Hefty's and other people that are in the area to live here when they're also working here, because it's so much better for them when you can run 3 minutes into the school, and you're at the school, you're at home, everything is nice and close. And it's just the quality of life for those people and their kids and everything else. So that's the reason why we're trying to do this.
Okay, I have one more question for you. You're so concerned about the people in this area.
Yep.
I had a person talk to me down at the post office the other day that told me that he had been served an eviction notice because Hefty's had bought the trailer parks, and they all got a notice that they gotta be out within 90 days. He said, we have no place to go. There's no housing here. We all live on limited income. We have no money. The trailers are too old to move, and we're told in 90 days you will be out of here. That's sad. That is really, really sad.
Well, first of all, that's not the issue we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, it is
But
because
if we
you're,
want to talk about that.
no, you're
then
talking
nobody's
about
never- Yeah, let's
being
keep in mind
wonderful.
that. Okay.
Giving all these people homes, and then we have 2 places in town, but 90 days they have no homes. They have no place to go. They're poor.
Well, first of all, the notice never came from us. So
You
we
don't,
have
you
yet,
didn't buy it?
we have now, but the notice never came from us.
Jane, we need to keep back on track here, on topic.
Yeah. Well, if we're gonna have all this wonderful housing for all these wonderful people, then let's not forget the poor people. Let's not forget the poor people.
Thank you, Jane. Are there any other comments? Nothing online? Okay,
I do.
sir.
Did any of you guys go out there when the little amount of snow that we had actually melted and right by what I want to call Valley View Edition, because that's the legal description? Did any of you guys actually, because in February, when the first snow melted, we had approximately 2 inches of snow on the ground, even less in the pasture because it's windy in open pasture. And 2 inches of snow equals about a 1/4 inch of rain. so not that much on top of a dry year. And I got video on my phone of that entire dirt hill area, pretty much standing water, good 60 inches deep. And then when we got that additional snow after that, 'cause it dries up in about 2 or 3 days, when we got that 2 inches of snow, and lo and behold, same thing. All standing water out there. So across that whole area, right on the edge of my property, complete swamp mud mess. So as you guys are, because I'm not in a position, and I know I've mentioned it every meeting, that I don't believe any houses should be built. I'm talking those 4 little lots.
Yep.
So instead of 103 lots, it'd be 99 lots. Not significant, but I'm only looking out for future residents of Baltic, so they don't have their house on a swamp. Because that's what that area is. There's probably a reason Valley View never developed it. The waterways are there. That's everything on the south side where it was originally going to be a lake, now it's a detention area. Everything described there is exactly on the north side right there. You got 3 hills going in one direction, and that's actually a lower elevation. So the only thing I'm saying is anybody that's actually in a position, actually thought about anything I said in every meeting that I've been to about this.
Yes.
You guys just kind of go, yep.
So in regards to your question, at the last meeting, because yes, we'd had conversations, with Mike, and then we had conversations with Banner as well. And based on the elevations, we've been given assurances that they're going to make sure that the drainage is done correct. So they're the engineers, they're the ones that shoot it. We expect them to do their job.
So we're going off assumes, ifs, and assumptions.
Yes,
By an engineer.
by an engineer, yes.
So, and I get it, an engineer, sometimes though, you can over-engineer something, and when the assume doesn't happen and the if fails because there's a change, your assumption is now wrong, and you have flooded houses, because just like I mentioned before on the north side development, I know people that live there, and until they redid the park, they never got water in any of their basements. They redid the park,
Well, I can speak to that because I lived there for
yeah,
14 years. My sump pump never ran. So it just all depended on how deep someone's house was, which comes down to an engineering point,
yeah.
which is why you trust the engineer to do their job. I get that you feel that,
It's,
and you never know, it could be run so that it goes on the outside. See, because when they engineered my house sat like this, the water ran on the outsides. This house, it never ran, this house, it ran all the time. You just don't know.
so, and that's what I'm saying, is the simple, we're talking about 4 lots. And if there's a change in 20 years, when you guys are not on council, and maybe you guys will be, right? In 20 years from now, you're gonna have 4 citizens that are going, my house floods every time because it's in a low area that the city approved. What is the city gonna do about it? I get it, sometimes you gotta engineer some, but sometimes you gotta go and go, should we plan off the driest years we've had or the wettest years?
Correct, but
Because if you go back 2 years ago, there's no way anybody would have ever thought about doing anything there except.
and what you say is a good point, that was a 100-year flood, as they call it.
It's,
I know you brought it up at every meeting, yes, I understand that. Both Mike and Brian have identified that, we had a conversation with it last time. We put our trust in the engineer, who is also the city engineer, to make sure that it's done
so the
correctly.
same city engineer that Valley View had, that falls under the Valley View covenants, that say you cannot change the elevation back.
The engineer has nothing to do with public covenants.
Well, and that's part of the covenants, that the legal description is lot 77 of Valley View.
The city has nothing to do with the covenants. Covenants have nothing to do with anything the city does. It all belongs back to the private developer. They can make those decisions and say this is how they want it set up.
So that's, anybody that wonders about covenants, that's how strong.
Yes, I do have a question that rolls off of this, because, I've thought about this a lot. So let's say you guys do everything and anything to make sure this doesn't happen, and like you said, it does happen.
Yep.
Who does that fall on? Does that fall on the city Does that fall on the homeowner? Does that fall on the developer? Where does that go? Because now you guys are out of there. It's been developed. Where is it gonna go?
So I guess it's probably a more difficult question than an easy answer, but I mean, it obviously depends on what the problem is. But I can tell you what we did and what these guys are doing is, you know, our design is exceeding what the city's requirements are, because the city has very little in drainage requirements. So what we've done is implement standards from other communities to basically say, you know, we're designing our storm sewer so that it collects the appropriate amount of water in a 5-year storm and performing in a 100-year storm. That low area won't be a low area as far as the street's concerned. It's going to get significantly filled so that the street will drain through there. Those lots on those, those houses on those lots 1 through 4 could potentially be walkouts, but more likely either garden views or no basements. I mean, I think that was basically the discussion was, but no basements there. And that's a decision that somebody can make. I mean, where I sympathize with all of you is that at some point, somebody buys this lot and they make a decision, they can make a bad decision, and then it comes back to blaming somebody else because you didn't keep them from making a bad decision. I mean, at some point, we can only do so much to try to, you know, set this up for success, but somebody can do something that we never expected. Now, I think, again, Baltic has progressed and you have a building inspector, you have checks and balances in place that maybe didn't exist 20 years ago that help mitigate some of these situations. But, you know, I think from the developer's perspective and from our perspective, we've taken some steps to help ensure that some of these concerns are addressed and the issues are minimized as much as we can.
Which is good, and I appreciate it. My only question is, why go to the if when you could say,
Well,
don't, and then you know you'll never have a problem?
and keep me honest here. Let me see if I can figure out exactly how you asked it. So I built a house up in Valley. Okay? And then in 15 years from now, if there was a water issue, I guess the last thing in my mind would be to go to the city and go to the engineer saying, you caused this. Because we all know over time, you know, there's statute of limitations for everything. I mean, the warranty on my house was only a year. I mean, you can't come back to say someone and say, hey, we had a 200-year flood and I got water in my basement. That's your fault.
Correct, but your house in Valley is not at the bottom of the hill.
Correct. No. I know what you're saying, but I'm just using for reference.
And that's what you guys saying, yeah, go ahead, you can put a house in the valley of Valley View. There's walk those 3 ways right there. And it's nothing but standing water on a 1/4 inch of, 2 inches of snow melt makes a complete standing water out there.
And I would say, I mean,
That's not a lot of water. Now, I don't understand if we had 4 feet of snow out there, if it was melting. It was, a 70-degree day, it was all melting fast. But when it's 2 inches of snow and it was a dry year.
But there's been nothing's been done to that. It's still a hole and dirt. So after they get done building the houses and they put the grades in there behind the houses.
The Valley View addition, you're not supposed to change the lay of the land for the Valley View covenants. And that is lot 77 of Valley View addition. That's the legal description.
Correct, and it has been sold, so it will follow the new covenants for what their property is.
When I bought my property, did my property still stay in Valley View addition because I bought a lot in Valley View? Or did it just magically go to, no, I'm gonna make my own development? That's lot 77 of Valley View addition. That's the legal description.
It was never
Problem
platted.
is you have plotted lots. Okay, what they show on these maps are plotted lots. Okay, the one in that corner was never plotted.
So it
It is
technically
all
doesn't
one
follow
big
under.
chunk.
But I'm still
You
calling
cannot,
the legal description.
the legal description on the plat says that, but it's not platted that. There's a difference between plat and plot. And you have a fine line in that, and if you don't have
pins and staking out every point of that lot. It's not platted. So tonight, if the decision is made to plot this, this is just preliminary plots. It's not until they finish it, September, October, November, whenever they get all that platted, they come back and say, we would like to submit the final plat. Then those will all be pinned, they will all be taxed, it changes everything after it's platted.
And I'm all for it. I personally think it's a great plan. I appreciate the bike trail and all the thought in it. It just, I'm sorry, I've seen way too much water back there. I just think it's a.
Has that lot ever been graded? Usually when
Actually,
they
yes.
take it, bulk.
Actually, it was graded last year. It was flatly graded last year because they took
To what
out most of the
drainage?
dirt.
To what drainage is the other thing?
It's-
Because that, if it's never been platted, it's never been set to grade.
I'm just saying, sometimes
That makes
you
a difference.
don't need to force something sometimes, especially if it's 4 lots. I'm not saying like, oh, you can't do, it's 4 lots. Sometimes if you force something, that's when stuff goes wrong. And I'm just saying, take a look at that and with an open mind, open concept and say, is 4 lots actually worth it? And even for you, Mr. Becky, is 4 lots, the amount of engineering you have to do in that 4 lots, does the cost recovery even worth it?
Yes, by far and away. It's not even close. And here's the other thing. If you look even a quarter mile downstream, we have lots of slope. Their building engineer said it, what we had last time, in the last meeting we had. We have slope right there to deal with, we have plenty of dirt to deal with, and we have lots of slope going downstream. So I'm with you. I don't think that anybody should build in the floodplain, but this is not in the floodplain. There's lots of slope left. Because if we're gonna stop development there, that means that everybody that has a lower grade in the city of Baltic should not have a house. Well, that's half the county.
That's all I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. I have faith that they're going to do the right thing and the engineer is going to do the right thing as well.
Sometimes I go for simple instead of over an engineer. So that's nothing wrong with an engineer, but sometimes, the acronym of KISS is the best way to do it.
Which is a good acronym. Any other questions? Dave, do you have any questions? Okay, just want to make sure everybody was on board. Any comments, further comments from anybody? No. I guess I would move to, hearing no more comments, I would move for a recommendation or a denial.
Any on there?
Is there any comments online?
We just got one. Can we please trust the engineers and assume positive intent? You can read that out loud.
The question is,
It's not a question.
it's a statement. Can we please trust the engineers and assume positive intent? It was just a statement to your question.
And I'm just bringing up one side of the viewpoint.
Absolutely.
So everybody comes with an open mind. That's it.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Do you have any questions?
I just found out about this meeting, I didn't know what was happening, so I just shut up.
Seeing no more comments, we'll move on to approval or denial. Oh, can you put your mask on, please?
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor?
We need a motion.
We need a motion first. We'll make a motion to approve or deny.
Well, so we're going to read out it now?
We're going right at it. It was the only item on the.
And just to be clear,
Okay, good.
and Mike tried to explain this to me, if we do this final preliminary plat, that means, okay. That if they recommend it, the council approves it, you could start dirt work.
Right. So Christopher actually said it very well, is that this is the preliminary plat process in that the planning and zoning then would recommend approval to the council. The council then would take that into consideration, approve the preliminary plat, allows the work and everything to begin. That is not the final plat. That will occur at a later time. That will come before you. That is once all of the elevations for the pins and everything in the lots and the actual physical lot, legal descriptions of every lot in the place is then ready to be submitted as the final. That is what gets filed with the county at that time as the final legal description. and that's the time that the covenants get filed with that same final plat. This is basically the final preliminary plat approval for the work to begin.
And barring any major changes that they find as the engineers are out there looking, if there are any changes that they come back to the city, let them know, then we all get together again and say, hey, by the way, lots, whatever through whatever need to make change. So, otherwise, everything sits right now as it stands.
Good question.
Yes, ma'am.
When is, what's your projection on this? When are you gonna start doing all
Building.
this stuff? After the city council approves it? You bring in your diggers and you start
Doing dirt work?
laying it out and all that kind of stuff?
Correct.
Probably this summer sometime? You don't know?
This spring, this summer, yep, sometime this year.
Good question.
And I think just one other thing I would add, I mean, as another step, so, I mean, by approving this tonight, and then obviously there's two different developments you're approving, but, you know, these guys are a little ahead of schedule, I would say, than a typical developer, just because trying to get that information to contractors, but that doesn't mean we can skip the process of when we get our design done, that still needs to be reviewed and approved by the city.
Correct.
That'll be a very important step to make sure they understand and agree with how we have the water lines, the sewer lines, the storm sewer lines, all that stuff. So that, I mean, it's gonna be very transparent and it's going to be they're going to be very involved in that process as well prior to that final plat.
And there's already been a lot of conversation with water lines and sewer lines with Bill. I know Bill has talked to you guys, they've talked to us about it, so yes, there have been a lot of questions already. So, yeah. Good point. Yes, ma'am.
So what exactly is getting approved tonight? And
So-
I'm sorry for being behind you.
You're fine. So tonight is approving the preliminary recommendation, so we'll make the recommendation to city council to approve this plat as it stands preliminary. So what that means is in 6, 8, 9 months, however long it takes them to get that done, they'll come back and say there were no changes to this. Here is the official plot that they'll get set up with the county. So this is so they can start doing their work.
Okay.
So we just make the recommendation to approve or deny, send it to city council tomorrow, and they make the final decisions and we proceed forward.
Here, did you get all your questions answered?
I did.
Are we doing anything with Phillips Crossing tonight, or is it strictly?
Yes, no, they're for both of them. Yes, yeah, we just put it as Grant Park Capital because that's the company. Yep.
Is there anything you can address on the Phillips Crossing?
There was no changes from the last meetings that we've had.
No
And
changes.
there's no changes. The only thing we did ask was for the elevation map, if you could get that sent down to the city so that we can get that on. Yep. Good question.
I just want to make sure that we're on the right.
Any other questions then? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion to approve. To approve. Do we have a second?
Well, second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Passes. Okay. That'll be written up to council tomorrow. So, at this time, I move to adjourn the meeting. Oh, I can't move, no. Gotta get used to sitting in the chair.
Okay, I'm sorry, can I get a call? Travis?
Good luck.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.